We're just working on some technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties here.
Just some technical difficulties. It's okay.
Okay, so we're going to get started. Last night, thank you guys that did podcast with us. I think what's happening is they're saying that I am Dare You to Be Different. I guess when you're adding different pages. So for some reason, it worked. Okay, here we go. This is our second time doing podcasts. And those of you who know me know that I have a desire and a passion for people. I just enjoy people from all arenas. It could be children. It could be, adults. It could be. So yesterday was our first time with my son-in-law, actually my nephew, actually my goddaughter husband, but I'm like mama to him too. So we came on live yesterday for the first time on a podcast, and we started to talk about voices of Black men. And now we're on part 2. We actually did part 1. So if you get an opportunity, or if you feel like this is something that you will enjoy, the reason why we are actually doing this is because my heart goes out to, now for those of you who are women, you know for a fact that we're talkers. We're always talking. We're always expressing ourselves. A lot of us, I can't say all of us. So for all of you guys, it's going to hit me up and say, nah, not all of us. Most of the time, we are talkers. We talk a lot, and we would be more open to share and to talk. The difference is not with men. Men do not talk as much. They don't open up as much. So, and my husband is looking, so I know he's probably saying, yes, yes, yes. And I used to tell people all the time, I am the one that talk a lot when it comes to our marriage and relationship, and then I want to ask questions. I want you to feel what I feel and all this good stuff. So we started to, my heart goes out because a lot of times you see brother groups, and men might say, I got a group over here and we talk, and then I got some over here. Depending on your personality, everybody is different, right? So the big thing is we wanted to hear the hearts, and we shared a lot in the last episode, and we were excited about that. And we had quite a bit of people join us as we came live on our podcast for the first time. So I was really excited about that. And so it's people I never met, I don't know, but they begin to send up hearts and join us. So we just want to touch on some of those things that we touched on last night. Mr. Hakeem started to talk about different relationships with dads and with his parents and things like that, and how it influenced our lives as adults as we grow up. And when we're growing up, it influences us, right? We kind of mold into these adults based upon our experiences growing up in our environment. So whether we're angry, whether we're not angry, whether we're talkers, and I was sharing with them last night, because I'm a talker, I have to pause sometimes and breathe and listen to others. And one of the things I like to hear is why they think the way they think and what happened. So we are judgmental. A lot of times we judge before we understand the totality. And women, we are a little bit more talkative. I'm quite sure if I talk to some of the women and say, hey, who talk more in your relationship? You are the male. And a lot of us may say, we may say, my husband talk more, or this one talk more. May not. I'm not sure who does what. But hold on one second.
It's coming through the headphones.
Oh, here?
Mm-hmm.
From here. We're talkers, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't talk as much as we talk, and sometimes. So we want to hear the hearts of the male, of a man, and from his aspect and his point of view of growing up. So there's a lot of things that he shared last night that really blessed me, and that I was really excited to hear. And now we want to hear from some of you, and we want to hear from different people that much. So we start to realize that things change. Okay, so you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right, there you go, bud.
Looking forward to it. I feel like today's topic, to go off of what we were talking about last night and to get back into it, marriage. Marriage is, and a lot of people my age that I've talked to, a lot of people, especially men in my generation, I guess you could say, a lot of us fear marriage. A lot of us fear marriage in the sense of we don't know, because a lot of us don't have it in front of us. We don't see a lot of our people married, just in a relationship for a long time, and and everything like that. Like, how do you consider it? What do you consider marriage to be?
So this topic is Voices of Young Black Men. So I would say this. Those of you who know me, I am not married to an African American man, but I did have a African American dad.
I'm just asking.
So you're talking about marriage?
I'm just asking a general question.
Oh, just a general question of marriage.
So a lot of people that I've talked to.
So
this we can
marriage. Oh, so let's talk about marriage and relationship. I think that's where he's trying to go, because we were trying to see the next topic. I was trying to cover last night and talk about African American men. And when you're talking about relationship, when you're talking about getting into a relationship, or when you're talking about somebody becoming one and you're doing it together, it's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of, depending on, now, my story is a little bit different than the norm. And so I try not to, equate mine to others. But I will say this, growing up, I was always looking for, I never wanted to be married. I didn't want to be married. I can't necessarily say it was because I saw good or bad marriage. I think more so fear of not the unknown. Like when I was younger, I realized when I was younger, I'm 52, right? So when we were younger, we were like, oh my God, you're so old. And then the older I get, when I get 52, I realized that I am a year older than I was when my dad died, right? So he died, and then I started to realize when he passed away, he actually passed away young. So I thought that he passed away old, but he actually died at a young age. So now that I'm 52, and I'm sure the kids are saying, oh my goodness, you're so old. And you can see the gray and all that good stuff. But when you're talking about relationships and marriage, when I got married, I knew it was the plan and the providence of God. Like my husband was under the tent preaching, and I was singing, and 6 months later we got married, didn't know each other. And then we started to realize that marriage, as difficult it can be, and no matter if he was under the tent preaching or not, we still, and some of y'all might look and say, okay, you got a pastor, but the reality is I still got the man too. So there's a twofold in that when you decide to come into a relationship, and if you're ready for a relationship, and if you feel like that's something that you're able to do, it takes two people being totally committed and totally letting go. I don't want to say, because a lot of people say you need to be a whole, and then he need to be a whole, and two wholes come together. The reality is we need to know who we are and what it is that we see as goals, because when you see that and see who you are, by the time I connect with somebody who's going to be my covering, like I was saying last night, I enjoy my covering, and it has not always been enjoyable because I got married at a late age, not wanting to be married. So I did see some good marriages, I did see some bad marriages, and then when the good marriages that I did see, when you get to know them or go home with them, you start to realize it wasn't as good as you thought. Or when you realize they're married for 25 years, and after 25 years one of them walk out, and it's just like, oh my goodness, you just walked out. And what we see literally from the outside looks great until you start to realize that it wasn't what it is. And I'm sure that if somebody came to visit me and my husband, it would be the same way. It's easier to know somebody on the outside, but when you come on the inside and you get to know somebody, it takes you to a whole nother level. So marriage has a lot in it to cover in a topic, because marriage, so many variables. That, and you have to know that that's what you're coming into, so that we understand. Because now with young people, everything is like, literally I had somebody say this to me the other day, this true story, say to me the other day, these days you don't need papers. And that's why that's why I wanted to ask that question, because as a black man talking to a bunch of my brothers, they're scared of marriage in itself. And that's why I posed this question. And they're scared of the marriage part because all the stuff that they've seen from maybe family members, or like I told you, I haven't seen a lot of marriages from last night's conversation in my lifetime in front of me. I saw a great relationship in my grandfather and my grandmother. They were never married, so that I know of. So you see what I'm saying? So now, I think she took, my grandmother may have just took on his name at the time or whatever the case may be, but in terms of a marriage, I don't know if they were married or not. Gotcha. So now, in that aspect, because there's this fear of, what if this isn't forever?
And these are like black brothers that I'm talking to on the regular, like, yo, but what if any moment she could be like, I don't want to be here, or I could be like, I don't want to be here, and now that there's this whole extra part of it, like that fear of everything is gone. You know, because when you hear divorce, you don't hear, oh, hey, we divorced peacefully. No, you hear.
But do you hear with young black men most that they're either not getting married or they wait later to be committed? Do you find more people in relationships that are not married? And because you're already in a relationship and it became common, you feel like there's not a need to be married?
I think that, well, I've seen two sides of that. So there was a conversation I had with a guy who I consider my older brother, and he's like, well, you know, I'm scared of commitment. He is scared of commitment. He's like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to be committed because for my whole time even dating, I never had to be committed. You know, he's upfront. He's not a playboy.
So you blaming on women?
No. He's not blaming on a woman. He doesn't. He doesn't have that.
I'm just joking.
No, he doesn't have that thing about it. But he just has this fear of if he finally commits and gives his heart, it's now broken. And then again, like I said, you don't really see too many people say, you know what, we divorced peacefully. You know, she didn't want anything, I didn't want anything, or one side doesn't care enough, or that's his view on it. And then I have another brother whose view on it is, well, you know what, I just don't see a purpose in it at all. I don't see a purpose in wanting to tie everything together. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and we keep it moving as such because, you know, they seen it too, and their parents are married, which is weird. Their parents are married.
Oh, by the way, there is a big age difference between me and him. So I got married 16 years ago. He just got married a year ago, but been in relationships probably as long as I've been married, right?
Right, yes.
So when you talk about man, he's just jumped right in, right? So we weren't even thinking about talking about marriage.
I woke up this morning thinking about it, though.
He woke up this morning thinking. So those who are joining us Facebook Live and those who know us and those who don't, we literally, this is our second podcast. And so one of the podcasts, if you listened to last night's podcast, we were so excited because we began to have people from all over join us that we didn't even know, but they came and joined us live on podcasts. And, you know, we were really excited about how we interact with one another. But the reality is we're trying to now the next step. And I like hearing the voice of men. Actually, it doesn't matter what color you are, but I really like hearing the voice of men because we as women, we talk all the time. We talk. I know sometimes my husband be like, oh, come on, Audrey, I'm in the car, let's go. And we talk all the time, and we're very expressive. Even if we shut down in anger or not wanting to talk, we are still, we express ourselves. We may not always express ourselves openly, but with an attitude, girls. Now, you know, come on, ladies, that you're gonna know that I'm mad. You're gonna know that there is something wrong. You're gonna know when Audrey is mad. And I tell people all the time, if I stop talking, I'm mad because I'm a talker. So for those who know me on the line, my family, y'all know I'm a talker. So if there's something wrong, you would know right away because I am a talker. But the other thing is, that's my husband, y'all. I just start to realize that the more I'm open to hearing and open my heart to hear others and to hear what you're saying and what you're doing, it helps because I start to realize everybody thinks differently. Everybody is not the same. And if we constantly always deal with people based upon what we think that they're the same, we never get the gift that is the person. Because if I want you to be like me and I want you to do it like me and I want you to look like me, then we miss the gifts that we are. And I think that in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or a sisterhood or anything, you have to be committed to some level to commit to be together. So I had to learn how to trust my covering. And because I didn't know my covering and because I was getting to know him, the Lord had to teach me how to trust him. And so I didn't have that in the beginning. But I'll tell you this, I can't imagine being without him.
And see, now, that is like, this is in my first year. November 21st was the first year that I fully been...
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. That I was fully married. And it was something that I had to learn in itself, not even just in a relationship aspect, but I'm still learning, obviously, but what it really means to be a husband, aside from the papers that people say. It's just papers, you know, because there's a lot of things that ties into it. I guess you'd call me old-fashioned. I was always under the belief, because of what was in front of me, that love is love no matter what, you know what I mean? And I never knew that it was also the finance aspect of it, and the everything else that comes with marriage, you know, which obviously was yours is mine is yours type of situation, where I've seen was yours is mine is yours, but there was just so much extra going on this year alone, aside from everything else that, you know, I had to go through as a young black man, trying to figure out life with kids, life with my wife, you guys, my family, like, you know, everything that I wasn't taught as a young black man, because I didn't see it.
Right.
You know, I was, like I told you last night, I was of the age where I knew when my parents were divorced, but I didn't see them in the years of their marriage.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I didn't know.
So you didn't know what got them to the point where they decided to walk out.
Exactly. And I feel like that's a lot of the young black anything that have to deal, woman or male, that have to deal with, oh wow, when was I don't remember my parents being married.
Right.
So knowing that, and it was like, wait, okay. So now my dad, when I talk to him, he's giving me advice, but I'm like, I don't even remember this whole aspect of it. Like, I gotta go to my uncle, that's the only person in my family that's been married as long as I knew it. You know what I mean? So, and with the same person for as long as I knew him.
Right.
And now seeing it on the flip side, whereas now I'm in in the shoes of a married man, and trying to learn from other black men or anyone that I can
say help.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm drowning. But I feel as though it's a lot. I'm not saying that marriage isn't hard for anyone, but I'm saying marriage is hard for a young black man, because I'm already fighting against so much, and like we were talking about last night, fighting against the fact that I'm black, fighting against the fact that, hey, you know,
and the stereotype you got. The reality and the stereotype you got of yourself. So if you're constantly, and now I'm not saying that you're not up against a lot. We see it on the news. We see it where we go. Everywhere we go, you're up against a lot. You are. The other thing is helping you fight in your own thinking of who you perceive to be as a black man.
Yeah, right.
So if you don't see it, and that's one of the challenges, and as I watch my son, and some of you guys may say, okay, he's biracial. Yes, he is, but he is also an African American man being brought up. You can see certain features. This is who he is. He embraced both cultures, you know, so it's not like, okay, I'm this and I'm not that. He understands, and to watch him embrace and try to grasp who he is, like I'll watch him and my husband with the hairstyle.
That's a challenge, but a lot of that is a challenge in itself too, because it's like, okay, you don't want to.
But he gets both.
Right, I'm saying he doesn't want to. Even I could see it, because I'm part of the family, so now I can see he doesn't want to embrace one side more than the other. So he's also still trying to find this balance within himself, at the same time be himself. You know what I mean? So, but listen, believe
and
it.
that's the beauty in it, right? Because when you're thinking about men, period, right? Because I wasn't sure if I want to say, voice of black men, or do I want to hear voices of men, because they're all important. But I start to realize that I'm watching him develop, I'm watching my nephews develop, and I'm watching my nieces. So you watch groups of people develop who you are related to, and that and that you see, and you start to realize that they're affected by what we do and how we're brought up. And you can say, I don't care about my childhood, I forgot about it, I walked away from it. But we are actually molded by what happened to us. The beauty in it is we either grow or we stay where we are. So you can choose. Like I said, I didn't see a bad or good marriage. I don't remember a lot of it. I was 21 when my dad died. What I did know is he was there. I was Slugger's daughter, and I knew who I was. Right. And if you bothered me, I was calling Slugger, So I knew that he was my dad. He was my dad. I knew that I was going to be protected. I knew that nobody bothered me. But there was another side that I wanted to know, that now, I know you had 8 girls and 1 boy, but I need to know you're my dad. Like, I needed to feel that personal connection, like you're my dad and you love me. And there was certain instance where I wasn't sure because we were such a big family. And all of us, like I said last night, even though it was 9 of us and we had the same parents, all 9 of us had different experiences. So we didn't have the same experience. So what I thought about my dad may be different from what my sisters thought about their dad, or my brother may have a different opinion, but we all had a relationship at some point with him. And to lose him at an early age, my thinking or my experience with him ended at 21, where my oldest sisters ended at 30 something. Does that make sense?
They had a
longer time. They were affected differently. And so I started to realize, like, even looking at my 3 children now, and I feel and I see, like, oh my goodness, I have to hear their hearts, right? Because you can't see all of your children the same way. You can't. You have to see the gifts they are differently. You can't say, why can't you be like this one? Or why can't, and I started to realize that when my Leah started to get older, and her learning and how she learned was a little bit different than Hannah and Jonathan. And even from the way she looks, like I was sharing with somebody today, I put pictures up on Facebook of my children, and even though they liked all the pictures, there's one specific picture of Hannah that, the person liked, and I started to realize the reason why, right? She reminds of her sister, and Hannah looks like her, and so there were some things that was tragic, and there were some things that, she loves to watch because I guess she sees her through that. So I had to understand that. But then I started to realize that, Leah had attributes of, my mother-in-law. So when I hear my husband say, man, she reminded me of Annie, So watching them grow up with a dad in the house and actually have a one-on-one experience, and watch my son with my husband, I can't say I saw that with my dad and my brother. Now, I can't say it didn't exist. I'm just saying I've watched my husband with my children. And, I just feel like watching them. And, the Bible says, now, it says, if our earthly fathers know how to give good gifts, how much more our heavenly Father. So it's just like I see my children having this experience with their dad that I never had.
But that's in itself is
Can't say I never had. Hold on, I'm sorry. I apologize. I better not say that. I can say this. I remember going to see, I'm getting ready to age myself. I remember going to see Grizzly Adams do the drive-thru. I remember my dad driving us down to Alabama in his car. So there's some sentimental moments that I had with my dad as a younger person. I don't remember too many as a teenager. There you go.
Well, I'm not going to sit there and say, my dad wasn't there. Well, my biological father wasn't there, no. But we discussed last night, that my dad took the role since I was a baby. So I don't know a life without him. I don't know anything else, besides him. There's no other man that, I consider my dad besides him. It was definitely a good thing to see, like I said, because now it molded me into who I am in the terms of, making sure I get everything right with my own kids and everything, me being a stepdad and things of that nature because of him, and it wasn't something that, when I hear a lot of men leaving lives and, leaving families. And again, like I said, my biological father left, and you don't know why. You don't know what put it into that. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. You just don't know what state of mind that they were in. And now, again, I used to, like I was saying last night, I was so angry at my biological father that I didn't care what he was going through. I was like, what's going on, Like, why weren't you married to my mom? Why is, he married to my mom and he has kids over here, and why did, so everything else, those are things that I was thinking. Yeah. And I couldn't, that's why I was so enraged until 7th grade. To my 7th grade year, I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to get suspended from school anymore. One, because I didn't want my mom to come to the school, because I know a lot of people that like my mom at the
so
school.
Even though dad wasn't there, mama was going to come and get you.
And then my dad, my dad worked a lot. But then again, like a lot of my friends like my mom. So I was like, oh no. Yeah. They're like, oh, your mom look good. And I'm like, all right, I'm done with this, because this is why I'm fighting in school, because people talking about my mom. So I stopped. But then I started to see, my dad, I really respect him, and respect the fact that he, even though, the stuff, to me, that's something, to him, that was something small. It was effortless. He was like, I saw your mom struggling with you. I liked your mom, and I just got a job and took care of you guys. And it's as simple as that answer was, it did so much for my life. That small little answer that I got from him, even though I know it meant so much more. That small answer was simple to watching me look back now at the interactions that we have. Because I laugh now. I see sometimes when Jonathan and Pastor are playing basketball and they get a little, they start butting heads.
Oh, yeah.
So, but then I have to look back at it. I was laughing at it. I'm laughing at it because that was me and my dad. That's a dad-son interaction. If nobody does that to you, your dad does that to you as a man. Like, he has to test you, push you, pick you up, push you, pick you up. Because again,
you just have them there.
This world is, like we said last night, this world is just, as young black men, is going to beat us up if we're not ready. I didn't believe this saying that as a black man, we have to work 20 times harder, 50 million times harder to get anywhere in life. So him doing that, even though he is, half black, half white, is still the same concept. And now and then the same thing, it goes vice versa for myself and my sons. Like we said last night as well, we want our kids to do 50 million times better than us. At the same time, I want them to see, okay, daddy was married. He finally, even though, I really believe in marriage. That was something that I always believed in, everything that I was going through in my past, trying to be a playboy, that's something that I wanted so bad. And that's something now that I take to the heart, but I don't think a lot of black men, young men, see that. So now I'm happy that I could be, like my friends told me, yo, you're married still? And I'm like,
it's only a year.
No way.
Well, annulment is the truth. I mean, marriage, listen, the truth is marriage is challenging. I mean, listen, if we want to be honest and we're going to talk about marriage, it's challenging. It's a commitment. Some people want to be married that's not married because the guy, is so comfortable with them not being married. They don't care to be married. Like back in the day, everybody got married. Now it's like, I talk to somebody, they're like, why I need to get married? It ain't nothing but a paper. And I was like, okay, if it's nothing but a paper, why you wearing a ring? A ring is nothing but a ring. I mean, it symbolized that it's a covenant, it's a contract. You won't go buy a car without a contract. Right. You won't go buy a house without a contract.
I feel like anything of value.
Won't go anything of value.
The ring itself
is a contract. Right, depending on what they buy. But the reality is, commitment. It's challenging for everybody, and I tell people all the time, there's 3 things that would stop a relationship and end a marriage. It's money, infidelity, and sex. Those are the 3 things that we really that's a whole
infidelity in itself though is glorified if you think about it. Even in music today,
okay, let me go back to your dad. I'm sorry to interrupt. We had talked about that. Okay, so listen to this. I saw this TikTok, and I don't know if those of you out here that saw it. I saw this TikTok and I was really fascinated by this TikTok. There was 2 men in the street and it was raining and they were shaking, right? And one didn't have on those shoes, but he had on a t-shirt and a pair of pants. And the other one didn't have on those shoes or a jacket. So the son comes up and they point and said, this is my dad and this is my stepdad, right? So he comes up. Now, all his life, I guess he was raised by the stepdad. But he comes up, he put his jacket on the stepdad, and he takes his shoes off, and he gives it to the stepdad. And the stepdad's putting on his shoes and putting on his jacket. And guess what he did for his stepdad? He picked them up and carried them to his destination. Tears started coming to my eyes. It was so profound. It was like, even though I know he's my birth dad, and the reason why I brought that up, because I know you talk a lot about your dad, and you shared last night in a part of the episode that the man who raised you is not actually your biological father.
Right.
And the beauty in it is, even though you were angry at some points and you could have been angry and you go back and forth, you said, I thought it was so profound last night when you said, even though my biological father wasn't there, I did not miss out on a heartbeat for a dad. Right. That to me was such an amazing, because I had my dad, you understand? My heart do go out to my half brothers and sisters that didn't have that. But the reality is, when you said that I didn't miss a heartbeat, I was like, man, that's powerful. Because this man stepped up, and we wouldn't even know when I met him that he was a stepdad, other than you tell us. Because he didn't respond to you, and he doesn't say my stepdaddy. He says, my son, you know, and you say my dad. So nobody would know that other than when you shared that. And that, to me, was a blessing. So when I saw that TikTok last night, it reminded me of you, especially after the episode, when I saw, excuse me, when I saw that, you know, he put the shoes in the coat.
Now, to cut you off a little bit, like, I'm not saying that now I don't have some form of relationship with my father. You know, we talk, and what made me matter when it first happened, that I first met him at 14, and then a little while later again in my life, was that he reminded me so much of myself. You know, goofy, he laughs.
Now, this is your biological
my biological father, similar.
Do you look like him?
All I need is glasses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's the sad part. So a lot of the times, that was what I was fighting with too for a long time. Like, wow, I look like this guy. And I hear people coming up to me, hey, little Harry. And I'm like, oh, man.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So, you know, and then it became, like I said, it took me some growing. Like, you know, I wasn't telling him I loved him for a while.
Right.
You know, and I was trying to fight it because he's so charismatic. It bothered me that he's so likable. But I couldn't, you didn't give me that. Right. So it bothered me. Like, you couldn't be committed to me like you were committed to whatever you was committed, whatever else.
Have you ever asked your dad that? Say why you couldn't be committed to me?
We talked vaguely about it.
Did you learn about his childhood? Maybe
no, I did.
Dad?
No, he had a. I'm not gonna sit there and say he didn't have a rough childhood. He had a rough childhood. His mother passed away at a really early age. He was raised by another woman. I believe it was his aunt. I'm not sure of the real story, but she raised him. Her name was, I think, Sybil. Her name was Sybil. That's all I know of her. I know she took really good care of him his whole life and everything else like that, but she also passed away, so he kind of went spiraling. His dad was in his life, not in his life kind of thing from what he was telling me, so all he knew was, that's why I say it trickles down so much, so all he knew was, all right, my dad's not there. I'm raised by my mom. You'll be okay, son. Even though this is my hope that he was thinking, you'll be okay, son. I got to get my life together. Your mom got you, kind of thing. You know, because that's all he saw in front of him. Now, being an adult, thinking about it. You know, when I was a kid, that's obviously not what I was thinking about. Like, okay, came in my life, you bought me a bike and a pair of shoes, and you left. So it was like, that's all I'm worth to you, you know. And then he came back again, and when he came back when I was an adult, I got to really sit down and talk to him, and, you know, I call him Twin, you know. We have our little thing going on, but now he's incarcerated from some other stuff that happened. You know, I caught up to him from his past, but from what I'm hearing, he's doing better with his life and things like that. You know, getting ready to, you know, be released soon. So hopefully everything falls through, because he was a great. Now he reminds me of Big Dog in the sense of being a great grandfather. You know what I mean? You know, with all the stuff that happened.
So he gets another opportunity. And that's why I think it's so important that we encourage our men in spite of. Like, I'm not saying that you got to make excuses for them, that they don't have to get their lives together. I think once you start to realize how much of a gift they can be and who God created them to be, I think that we would trust in the change by giving people opportunity. Don't let people hold you hostage by your past. And that's one of the things that I find when I talk to young Black men, that, you know, oh man, she don't want nothing. She don't want me to change. This is what I am. And since she's accepted me this way, this is what I'm going to be. And 9 times out of 10, us as women, that's what we do. Oh, we eventually, because we used to think in our mind, then you get older, and, you know, at 52, you realize they are not going to change. You cannot change them until they decide they want to be changed. But then when they want to be changed, stop holding them hostage to past stuff. Either you're going to allow them to change or let them go. I told somebody that the other day. She going to say to me, I want my marriage. I said, if you don't want your marriage, let him go. If you want it, work with him. You can't have
that's a hard
both.
It's a hard thing, though, you know, especially like you and I talked, you know our situation. Definitely, like I said, I was a playboy and, you know, everything of that nature. But from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to be, with my wife. So from the very beginning, I was like, listen, these are my flaws. These are my flaws. This is what I've done in my past. This is who I was. This is not who I want to be anymore, because I saw that life brought me X amount of drama, and I'm really looking forward to building and being a better person. So, once that happens, you kind of got to do it for yourself first before anyone else will be willing to do it. If I was even open enough to say, here, listen, this is all my cards, I don't think it would have happened. So I feel like it's a two-way street in that aspect, because you can't take off the jacket without taking it off for yourself. So, my jacket has, hey, he cheated, hey, he was a liar in this relationship, hey, this, hey, that. Until I'm ready to take that jacket off, like you said, that's just something that is always going to be what it is. I was just watching it like with my wife on Steve Wilkos. The guy was cheating on his wife for 5 years. He went out to go with some friends, and there's 3 women. She was like, he cheated. He was like, I did not cheat. I'm telling you, I did not cheat. Took the lie detector test and, came back. It was some off-the-wall stuff that he's like, oh, hey, I was with this girl, met this girl, left with another girl, met this girl, left with another girl. In my mind, I'm like, he did it. Come on, bro. Like, you really did it. To come back and find out he did not cheat. He was, I said, I told you I want to be in this relationship. And I feel like it's hard. He's a black couple. So I automatically assumed, because he was a black man, and that's me judging another black man, how I wouldn't have wanted to be judged in that sense. So I feel like because we see it so often or not, whether it's the marriage, being the father, we see it more often than we don't see it. That's what it becomes. We become desensitized to everything that's around us now. Instead of being empathetic, like, well, you know what? This is what happened. Let's work on moving this way. It's not easy, because now as a man, my pride is in it. I don't want to know. You're not about to tell me nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. So now it's hard for us to take that pride out, because all we got is our word and our pride. Even though pride is a sin, is to some form. Now you're like, you don't know how to deal with it.
So when you're talking about you got me, because once again, those who are joining us, we are this is our second podcast, and we're really excited about the podcast, and those that replay the podcast, and those that will replay the live, or have questions and inbox me and emails. So we're excited about that. Dare to Be Different is a nonprofit organization that we started years ago, and so my heart started to go out to the African American boys, young boys that have, if you start to heckle my husband, if you start to spend time with them, and you see, because we were talking last night, think about our sons and think about our nephews and think about, so many things that they're challenged with now, and we see it on TV. We see it, police brutality. We can go on a lot of things. Black and black crime. We're killing one another. It's sad, but I'm sure if you talk to somebody in the 3rd grade or in the 2nd grade or in the 4th grade, they're not saying to you, "This is what I want to be when I grow up." There's something that they encounter. There's an experience. There's something that happened in their lives or in our lives that get us to the point where we make our choices that traumatize us, or we're not taught, or we are shielded from. So we have these challenges. I guess a part of, and then now that I have a son, when you have children, it takes you into a whole nother ball game. Like, oh my goodness, how do you raise them in today's society? How do you give them positive feedback? How can you make them stand out and let them know that you don't have to, go with the crowd? And how do you keep them, now that my son is 16, so I'll make you laugh, because that's why I wanted to hear your voices, because my son, who is 16, came home a couple of weeks ago. So we got this thing where I say to my children, I want you to tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. And 9 times out of 10, God will cause them to be busted. So I say, just tell me everything. And I didn't know what I was asking for. So when I told my kids to tell me everything, I had to back up and say, Lord, did I really mean for them to tell me everything? So now I have this 16-year-old. So teenage snuck up on me, right? And so, of course, they talk to their big sister and their big brother. And, we start. So, my son Jonathan goes, okay, Mom, I'm going to tell you everything. And so a couple of weeks ago, he comes home and he says, I got this girl. She's my friend, because they know I already told them we can't have girlfriends until after college. So the reality is I started defining myself, rethinking a whole bunch of stuff. So my sister was like, well, you don't want them to be sneaky, so you might want to, change that phrase. So of course he comes home, and so the first young lady he brought about last week or so was a couple of years ago, was Hispanic, and I met her, and really nice young lady, young girl, blah, 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 blah. Make a long story short, I don't know what happened. My son loves his games, love his basketball, and he is into himself. That's why I told him, you are not ready for a relationship. He is into himself. Hear my heart. My son is into himself. If you think he's into anything other than himself, you are going to be sadly mistaken. So I felt bad. But, and so a couple of weeks ago, he comes back again with this rosy hair, freckle-faced little girl, right? Totally different, okay? And so I said, oh. So he brought her to the house. We went out to Hannah's birthday party, and I'm still trying to process this, right? So little me, who's not paying attention to him, since I told him I want you to tell me everything, I'd rather for you, because I don't want my son to wait to later and say, Mom, I did and messed up. Not that he's not going to mess up, but if he's taught some things, I think that, he may go over here, but he may not go over here. Or he may see that over here, and he may not go here.
You know what's crazy, though? Not to cut you off. My mom, I had a lot of conversations about relationships with my mom. Not saying that I couldn't talk to my dad, but I'm I was just the type of kid, well, if I'm going to talk about being in a relationship with a woman, I might as well talk to a woman. I felt like that was the smartest thing to do. Now, when I talked to my dad, hey, Dad, how did you, did you speak game? Or, did you, try to woo mommy or something like that? That kind of stuff, yes. But I was like, you need a female's perspective on that. As much as you don't like to think, you may not think it, you need it, because, again, I'm not saying
I don't know if he needed his mom's. So you got to realize that, there's a big difference between a mom who is 25 and a mom who's 52.
No, it is, but it isn't.
It's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Because you'll never, if you talk to me at 52, you'll never be married.
No, but again, not even the marriage part, but
or a girlfriend.
But you're also going to tell them now, because you're 52 now. You still going to want to teach them respect. You're going to teach them. You're still going to teach them. Hey, listen, son. This is you know what to expect. You dated outside of pastor.
No, I didn't. So that's the whole thing. I had a good friend. See, So my thing was, I am the wrong example here. I had a friend I thought I was going to marry. We've been friends forever, ancient days.
So you don't consider you dating?
He's not, off and on. I was 5th grade, 6th grade, off and on. But we still, to this day, best friends, good friends, I guess, because he ain't call me for my birthday. So if you're listening, I'm going to get you. But anyway, we talked a lot and we spent time a lot, but I wouldn't call him my boyfriend, so to speak, because we were childhood friends. He was my dude, type thing.
Oh, okay.
And then the truth is, I didn't date Pastor. I think we do more dating now than we did. Okay, that's a whole other thing. We come off of that, and then we have that on another topic, because he's trying to bust it. Listen, he's trying to get me on a podcast and live. Okay, so we're not going to go there. But anyway, that's a whole nother story and a whole nother relationship. And I think it's really important that we talk to our sons and we talk to our daughters, because there is a show, and I didn't do it yet, and I know I need to, with him now that he's talking more about girls. Thank you, Jesus. So there was a show that my niece Malika told me to watch with him, and so I didn't get a chance to watch it with him. So for all those that know the word of prayer, please pray for us, sister, okay? Because that's a little difficult for me when I'm talking about dating as children, because I believe that you have to be responsible when it comes to relationship. And I think that's where we get a lot of wounded people, a lot of people that say, oh, I love him, but he don't love me, or I love her and she don't love me. And so we get these emotional ties. And when we get this emotional ties, I think that's my niece, when we get this emotional tie, we are challenged with this emotional tie, because I start to realize that they're hard to destroy, they're hard to break, they're hard to take from one spot to another. That's my nieces that come in and spend some time with me from Connecticut. So we start to realize that that's a big part of what happens to us as African American women or men. You understand? So that's one of the biggest things. Here, come on, son, you go ahead, I get it. So he's gonna continue. I'll be right back. I will be right to back. Give me a minute. And I'm gonna
Where'd you leave off, Mom?
relationship
Oh.
from an African American young woman aspect.
Okay, well, coming from when I was a teen to where I am now, I saw a relationship as something that basically, I guess you could say, came and went. It was just like, okay, especially teen years, you're trying to figure yourself out. Like she said, he's into himself, but I was there. I can say I was into myself as well, because you're trying to figure out, where do you belong, what do you want to be, especially as a young black man. You don't really understand that hearts are, fragile. They're really fragile. You don't know what's going to happen to her. You don't know what's going to happen to you. And for me, I didn't see a lot of dating, because my dad was with my mom, or my grandfather was with my grandmother, and my uncle was with my mom. So it was a lot of dating that I didn't see, or anything of the sort. A lot of that kind of stuff I learned from watching a lot of TV. I was a TV watcher, so I learned a lot of that from watching TV and just going with the flow. Really was never scared to be myself in that aspect. Really never scared to venture out and try it. My parents weren't with it, but they weren't against it either. When I was a young age, and my mom being my mom, and she was a single mom in the house, and my dad was a single dad in the house until he met my stepmother. So a lot of the dating questions really was just something that I had to figure out. It wasn't something that was just thrown at me. Like I said, I got advice from my mother, but not to the point where I knew what to do.
So the other side of that is, I'm gonna come say bye. Don't leave 2 seconds, Kim. The other side of that is trying to. I got a question I want you to answer, and I think because we do it for an hour. One of the things I want them to hear your heart. Yesterday, you made a good point concerning your mom and her having you at a young age.
Yes. My mom had me at the age 14. To my knowledge, until recently, I didn't know my mother didn't really have me my first 2 years of my life. Like, she was in my life, but didn't have me because, again, she's 14, still trying to go to school, still trying to figure out what was the best route for me, and really just me being the experimental child, obviously, because everything is new. She's still trying to be an adult as well, still trying to get it all together in her mind, and it wasn't easy for her, and for me now, my relationship with my mother now is kind of in I won't say down or anything like that. It's just something that we're working on, because she had me as a kid. She was a kid raising a kid, and it wasn't easy. And so she thought of it, like recently we talked about it, and she was telling me how, maybe I felt as though it was her fault or anything like that. I don't believe that it was her fault. Life happened. And I take that now into my own relationship with my kids. Like, I don't want it to ever be, hey, dad was young and he had me, and he's trying to do this and do that. No, like, I still thank my mother for everything that she did. She sacrificed a lot to be here, because not for nothing, even though she had me, she still made honor roll in school. She still could have went to college. She still had a lot of other venues and avenues that she could have went down, and decided not to raise me and everything else that was going on in the times of her mother being, not there, or lack thereof of a relationship with her own father. So that also comes down to another point of trickling down. Her not having her father there, and my grandmother not being there, my grandmother from her not being there as much. So a lot of it trickled down to where now it's her and my aunt raising each other. And, at a really young age, trying to figure out this thing. And I'm happy they didn't have to, turn to the streets or anything of that sort. So, again, it comes back into right now, again, what you see. I saw a strong woman doing what she had to do. She has her mental issues now that she's working on and getting through. And I can't sit there and say that I judge her on that aspect or anything at all. It's just something that, we fight for together. And she was raising a young black man, and she didn't know how to. She's a woman, until, especially once my dad and her divorced. It was more so now, they were beefing, arguing and couldn't get it right, and the co-parenting thing was hard. So, one side I had one set of rules, and on one side I had another set of rules. So it was them trying to figure everything out as well, too. So, I just feel like, as young black people in general, that we see a lot of things. And I'm not saying people of other ethnicities and races don't see the same problems, but I feel like it's predominantly in our own homes, predominantly, in our black communities, because we're already always trying to push each other down. It comes back to now my dad can't forgive my mom for her past, my mom, and what she's done, and vice versa for my mom to my dad. So, they were young, my mom feels at times that she didn't get a chance to live her childhood, that she didn't get a chance to really have her fun, as a kid, because of something that she took for granted. And a relationship, having a situationship instead of a relationship. That's what I call it.
So I wanted him to share that if you guys get an opportunity to replay the podcast, we're trying to figure out how we can actually upload it so that you would not have to download the app. Thank you for all those that replay the podcast from last night. It was really, really, really exciting. And one of the things we started to realize is the more and more we share and the more and more we talk, and we understand, those of you who know me know I have such a passion for African American young boys. One of the things that we are working on now, and all of them are helping me with this, is we're opening a school from kindergarten to third grade to give them their foundational pieces in learning. One of the things I started to realize is that they socially promote our children, and they keep socially promoting them until they eventually drop out or they don't go to school. Now, some of us might say, not my kid, but it's not just about your kid. One of the things I started to realize is that my children share me with thousands and thousands of young people over the years, where Kingdom Kids have been, and I watch children come in and out of the school, some good and some bad and some indifferent, and these children never actually come. They never actually be born. We have them, and so once we have them, our whole life changes. And those who don't have birth children but have children in their heart, like nieces and nephews, some that you raised, and you start to realize how difficult it is even raising them in today's society, and your heart goes out, you start to realize they still need us. And like we said last night, there was a lot of programs that was available to us growing up, like the Police Athletic League, that the YMCA, after school programs. There are certain things that we had and we were able to do that, they don't do now. And so the biggest thing that they do is probably hang on the corner, or they go to somebody else's house, and then when they go to somebody else's house, that's when they begin to playhouse.
And also, then you become
exposed to things that
you normally wouldn't have. I've been, where I grew up, I was exposed to some stuff that I didn't think that, I would ever be exposed to. My past is not a squeaky clean past in the sense of, what I've seen. I've seen drugs definitely in front of me, prostitution, from while playing basketball in the back of our projects, literally stuff that I don't think that, until somebody proved me wrong, that somebody from another race or ethnicity have to deal with. You know, I feel like it's just a cesspool of violence, sex, and drugs. Where I grew up at, and you know, like I said last night, there was a lot of people that, in the process of doing these actions, were telling me, no, you should stay out of here, you should get out of here. But not everybody is lucky like that to have those people like, well, you know what, I'm in it. You don't have to. You know what I mean? So.
And and the other thing is, you better know, I was sharing with you guys, was it last night or earlier today? 11-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one of the biggest things, too, is in society is you have a lot of suicide. A lot of us don't talk about it. A lot of us don't talk about those areas that we need to. And you have, and I was watching CNN, and they told the statistics was from ages 12 to 29 or 27 are the ones that actually commit suicide. And then from there, they jump into 34 to 35, 36, because if we are real and we watch the news, we see some pastors that committed suicide. We see some famous people that commit suicide, and we don't know until later. And then sometimes we look at their Facebook posts and we start to realize the things that was happened before it took place. And my heart went out yesterday because a 11-year-old on a Zoom meeting committed suicide. And my heart was like, oh, not just for him, but his family, for the children that was looking on when it happened, their family, the teachers, like everybody is affected by what just took place. And we don't know, and I shared with you guys before, I never forget, especially during this pandemic, especially during the shutdown and the times where we were more isolated. You need to find out what there's no outlets that used to be. So I never forget, I was sharing with them one time in Sunday school, like I was coming home and the Lord laid on my heart, go look at Hannah, go check Hannah, you know, and I looked in and I looked at it and she looked like she was asleep. And I walked out to go to my room and go look at Hannah. And I went and I laid in her bed and she turned around and laid on my chest and her face was swollen. She just crying. So the isolation of the pandemic, like being closed in with COVID-19 for those amount of months where school shut down, this shut down, everything shut down, and her social outlet with other children and her friends and her whatever, you know, basketball and volleyball and her outlet and her laughter and, you know, her things that she had, she didn't have anymore. And so we don't realize even that, how it affects children. We started to realize a lot of our children from the daycare go home and stay at their homes. Are they being fed nutrition? Are they getting the things that they need? Or so you got you know,
a lot of this school is, believe it or not, for a lot of us, regardless if the kids like school or not, a lot of it is, I'm going to go see my friends today. Hey, this is my only chance. It's maybe my only chance for that laugh that they need, or for that person, their friend they connect with, to be like, hey, what's going on? They embrace them. So that hug for the day that they're missing, that teacher that may really, you know, they may not get it at home, but that teacher that's on them every day to be like, no, you're going to do your right, you're going to get your good grades, I'm love on you. They may have been missing that or that aspect that, you know, I had great teachers coming up as, you know, a kid, third grade. I will never forget her. She was also my basketball coach, Miss Cheryl Hills. Another gym teacher, Miss Riley. Mr. Jackson, who gave us the Gentleman's Club. Like, a lot of teachers that, you know, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that I didn't get the love at home, but that extra love from my village helped me out.
Helped a whole lot.
So, you know.
And it's really important.
There are missing pieces to their village, and that could have just been what it was. I haven't seen my you know, friend for X amount of time. It might not have even been the pressure of the schoolwork itself.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things. We're gonna thank you for joining us. Thank you. Hopefully you'll get an opportunity to look. We have put up the information info at there to be different.
Guys, thank you again for watching and listening. And if you guys have any topics that you feel as though we should discuss, and
please
we're willing
email
to discuss us. And we're open and willing to talk about a lot of things. You know, if, hey, you're a young black man, message us, and maybe we'll have a session where we can have you guys call in and talk to us, and quiz questions. It's everything, to grow as a community and as a people. And
we want to hear your voice. We want you. We want to be a part of hearing you, and you'll be surprised. You're not the only one that's going through something. You're not the only one.
That was key.
Hey, Sister Maribel. Yes, you're not the only one that is going to. Yeah.
Hey, Maribel, how you doing?
Your family.
And there's two E's in the
M's. She still loves you. He said 2 E's. That's okay. You can spell it like you hear it. That's exactly how I would spell it. Hakeem. So that's how it sounds, right? So one of the things is that, let's hear the voices of the men. A lot of times we hear the women, but we really want to hear your heart. And I think that if we really be a part of building men up and not tearing them down, giving them a second opportunity, just because they once was and they once did, doesn't mean they want to continue to do that, right? So we are excited. Don't pay him no mind. At least you know his name.
I love you.
So that's some of the things. So thank you for joining us. We are done. This is our second podcast. I'm so excited for all of you guys that join us. Thank you for those that replay. Please hit us up. That's our email address where you can send your topics. You can send your questions from last night podcast to this. I noticed that some of you guys inboxed me and you emailed me. You can actually do it from this email instead of my old one because I do different things. And so we want to hear your heart. We want to hear what you think. And I think this will prompt some talk with our fathers and with our sons and with our coverings. Okay? All right, until next time, thank you for joining us here on Dare to Be Different and Dare to Be You. Bye-bye. Have a great one.